Forever. Dog.
Hello, and welcome to Outgrown, where we have guests on to discuss something from popular culture that they used to profoundly identify with and once thought would define them forever, but then eventually outgrew. My name is Julia Vickerman.
And my name is Tom Scharpling. We have a great guest today, top shelf. We have Lauren Ash is here. How are you?
Oh, so fantastic.
Now you do so many different things.
I do.
You're an actor.
Yeah.
Superstore.
Yep.
You're on Not Dead Yet now.
Yes.
You are a podcaster.
Yes.
You're a musician.
Yes.
Yes. You've got multiple streams, as they would say.
A lot of them.
Yes. So it's very exciting to have you here.
We actually met Lauren because she adopted a dog from us that we were fostering.
That's right.
It's a little Chihuahua pug mix named Bean.
Being the best.
Yes,
The
and
best.
So you've had Bean for
Just over a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like to, it's like an open adoption. You know what I mean? Like you guys still see her sometimes. And that makes me feel good. I don't want to like hoard Bean.
Oh,
you know?
it's been wonderful to it's always the best when you actually get to see the dog's life after we foster them. So it's like on
Absolutely.
social media we see and Bean is being treated like a little queen.
Oh, she lives a nice life.
Yes,
I'll be honest with you. She lives a good life. She
Yeah.
travels with me everywhere.
Uh-huh.
She's like so into the plane. She's she's the best. She's the best little
that's great.
companion.
No, it's one of the funniest things is when they're in the house and then suddenly it's just like, oh, Bean's on an adventure. Yeah, there is just such a bond that comes from the fostering.
Yeah, it's like people say every foster you kind of like when they leave a little piece of your heart goes with them. I mean, unless you're a crappy person, I guess.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Or it's a terrible dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But
you're just like,
we have
goodbye.
yet to foster a terrible dog.
No.
Everyone says there's like coming up. They're like at some
Yeah.
point you're gonna foster a dog where you're like, I cannot wait until this dog's gone.
Right.
But that hasn't happened
Not yet.
He's
So
beautiful. How many dogs have you fostered at this point?
14.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and we started during the pandemic.
mhm,
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
Okay.
because before, like I've always, as an adult, we can cut all this out. I guess.
No. Don't say that.
as an adult, like I've always worked so much. I love animals so much.
Yeah.
But I've always been such a workaholic that it always seemed very selfish to have a dog that would just
Right.
be alone all day. So it was kind of like when that space in my life became available, it was like, let's fill it with dogs immediately
Yeah.
because I've been waiting for this.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Bean is in the right place.
She is.
Bean has the right mom
She does.
now.
She does.
So
She's the best.
Yeah. So Lauren, what topic are we going to discuss today? What have you outgrown?
Listen, I just got to say, I love this concept for a show in general because I feel like we all have the things. The first thing that came to my mind was a passion that I had when I was a very young child, which of course was hit boy band New Kids on the Block, NKOTB.
sure, of course.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, for people who don't know, New Kids on the Block are an American boy band. They're from, do you know what town they're from?
Oh my gosh. Boston, isn't it?
They're from Dorchester.
Okay. All right.
I didn't know. No, but
No,
you're
that's
right. They're
specific, though.
Massachusetts. They're
Yes.
Boston. They would call themselves as being from Boston.
I'm impressed that you
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
knew that.
and
Listen, I went deep at age 7. Just know
Sure.
that.
and the band is made up of Jordan Knight and Jonathan Knight, Joey McIntyre,
hmm
Danny Wood, and of course, Donnie Wahlberg,
Yeah.
the bad boy. Then they enjoyed success in the late 80s into the early 90s, and they sold more than 80 million records worldwide. And I'm sure you contributed to that number.
Yeah.
And they're credited with paving the way for all the future boy bands like NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. So they really set the table for a lot of things.
They awakened a lot of young girls'
Mhm.
interest.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
set the stage for us. You were 7.
I was
What's
7. Yeah.
What's going on in your life?
You know, it's where at this time, of course, we're talking pre-internet. Obviously, I'm not dating myself. I mean, it was 1990. Do the math. I don't care. It's interesting because you really just find things through school at that age, right?
Sure.
Or at home. But I don't feel like I was viewing any content that was going to show me the New Kids on the Block. But I just immediately was in. That was it. And I think I got a tape for my birthday. I want to say it was Step by Step. It could have been Hangin' Tough. I'm not sure. And
who gave you the tape?
my mom, I definitely was asking for it. I was hearing it at friends' houses. I was like, I have to have this.
So there was this thing that other kids had and they were into, and you're just like, what is that?
What is that? And I think I'm being told I should really want it, and then also it did genuinely like it. I remember things escalated for rather quickly. There was definitely a Jonathan Knight doll that I had. Jonathan was my favorite. And I just have to also say he has, of course, as later in life, he is gay. And I was like, it makes sense that I made the choice of the one that would be the least interested in me.
Now you're like, the most unavailable of the group.
Yeah.
Exactly. I gravitated. We have patterns. The point is, I should also note that those dolls, and you may be getting to this later, but they had a little real kind of hair rat tail out the back. Okay. So it was, I don't know if Jonathan, he must, I don't know if he did. Most of them did. I remember that.
It was a very cool hairstyle.
Very cool at the time. Yeah. But yeah, I remember I had a sleeping bag. I was collecting the collector cards and stickers. I was very invested. And I think the moment for me, and the reason why I said to you, I think this is the one, is I remember my mother getting a little bit tired of all of the New Kids on the Block talk. And she said something along the lines of I mean, I don't want to use the term one-hit wonder, but she said something a little bit disparaging.
Horrific.
To which, and I vividly remember this memory. I remember where I was. I remember it was winter. I remember everything. I remember whipping my head and going, Mom, New Kids on the Block is going to be bigger than the Beatles. As a 7-year-old, and really believing that.
That's
really
amazing.
That. Yeah. I was like, this is it. I'm in for life. I'm the biggest fan that will ever live. And this is just my personality now.
It's such a specific type of pain when your parent tells you that they think what you like is stupid.
100%.
Or somehow belittle you for liking it. It's just like, daggers.
Yeah, it's funny when they can either, what do you think is worse?
If they like it?
Well, there's 3 settings then. Their parent says this is stupid or this is a great business. Oh, look at they're a great business person. Like they're belittling it in a certain way.
Like what my dad said about Marilyn Manson.
Yeah.
What did he say about Marilyn Manson?
He was an amazing businessman. That he was profiting from the sadness of adolescent kids.
Well,
and at the time I was horrified, and now I look back, I'm like, oh, of course, that's exactly what was happening.
So there's either that version, there's the parent likes the thing,
right?
So you almost have to share it with them, or there's the third one where the parent's just like, I just don't know what you're about,
right?
Like I got that, that was my version. My parents just like, we don't know what this is, but you seem to like it, so okay.
That feels the most difficult to me, to be honest.
That was pretty much what my situation was for most of my life, is because there was I got very intense obsessions as a kid, and it was a lot of just like, what is this, and just like whatever. You just go do that. It just keep it to yourself, that kind of thing. Yeah. And that's a somewhat lonelier feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still think the worst would be having to share it with your parents on some level too.
I agree.
Can I have my own thing?
Because that's when you are coming of age, is like you want to separate yourself from your parents. And especially if you think your parents are kind of lame, which...
Yeah, it's interesting because you ever see the alt parents that whatever the more, I don't know what the way to do, alt is the only word I can think, but then the child has got the faux hawk and the jeans and stuff, and then it's interesting because I'm like, that child's obviously not choosing that, but then children who are raised more typically aren't choosing that,
right?
But then it's like, is that kid just going to grow up emo? Is that how it goes? What if he's into EDM? You know what I mean?
That's what we always just used to joke about that, of just I would be cursed with a child who was into sports,
right?
And then I have to go get in. But it's if it's your kid, you're going to get into anything they would get into, unless you're my parents,
right? Right.
Yeah. My friend Jeff is into music as anybody could ever be, and then suddenly his son, who's a really good kid, suddenly he's just like, I'm really into like metal working and like hammering out like metal at things. And he's just like, where did this
That's so
come
cool.
from? But I love it. I
yeah.
think that's what's interesting. Like, where did you find this?
Yeah.
So you're in Canada.
Yeah.
What area in Canada did you grow up in?
I grew up outside Toronto, 2 hours east. Yeah.
Okay.
Small town.
And then one of your friends has the tape.
Yeah.
Do you remember what song was the first one you heard? Was it A Moment?
I think it was A Moment. I think it was the earlier tape I heard. I think I heard Hanging Tough, that album, the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it was around the time that Step by Step was coming out. And then that was the first one that was given to me. But I definitely remember Hangin' Tough, the song. I think that
Sure.
feels like a real touchstone in the love blossom.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, it's like an anthem for them.
Totally.
Because they're telling you, we're tough guys.
Yeah.
And we are 12?
Yeah.
How old were they when Hangin' Tough came out?
I think that Joey would have been pretty young.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably they would have been what, between 12 and 17, 18?
I think there was a good range. It is interesting because there's always the archetypes within the.
Right.
So you have Donnie's the bad boy.
Of course.
Joey was like the sweetheart,
sweet
kind of
boy.
like
Yeah,
the
young
innocent.
one.
He's
Yeah,
like the
the
innocent.
innocent.
What about Jonathan spoke to you then?
It's a great question, Tom. I think, Donnie and Jordan were kind of like the lead singers. They were the ones
Sure.
that did a lot of the heavy lifting. Danny, we're not seeing some solos necessarily from Danny, for example. He was the gym kind of guy. Again, Joey also, he wasn't really singing the leads, but he had the really high voice. He was the Michael Jackson of the Jackson 5.
Danny, in his own way, is, even though they didn't play instruments, he's the drummer of if a vocal group could have an attitude wise a drummer,
right?
He's the drummer.
He's there. He's keeping the time, but we're not seeing a lot of his face.
No.
Yeah. So Jonathan, the question is why him? And it's such a great question because he didn't sing on a lot of songs. My favorite New Kids on the Block song, I know you're wondering, is of course their Happy Birthday number. And I know what you're thinking, that one. The reason was because it was Jonathan's only solo.
Okay.
Oh, that explains why it's so good.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think, I often had this thing also that it's interesting that it started when I was that young. This wanting to choose, I want to like the mainstream thing, but
Sure.
I don't want to be that mainstream. I did go through a Danny Wood phase.
Okay.
I did because it was not the typical choice. And I don't know what that says about me psychology wise. Is it that it was I felt like I had more of a shot at the one that was less of the star? I don't know.
Yeah. It's
No.
That's very fun.
No, we've talked about this where it's just even with a group as huge as the Beatles,
Sure.
there's people who are just well, George is my favorite
Right.
Beatle, and that's just because the other two are just too upfront,
Right.
And I think they want to find the secret,
Right.
like the one that can be more theirs than what
It's
everybody
like
else.
when we were looking for a puppy, and I was like, "Where's the saddest puppy?"
Yes,
And it was
And
Nancy.
there was one in the corner of the.
I was like, which one
Right.
is shivering and scared of
Yeah.
everything?
You're like,
It's
that's
like, oh,
nice.
that's what I want.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll fix you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the thing
I
is,
get that. I
you
get
did.
that.
And then we did.
Nancy's the greatest.
Oh, beautiful.
So New Kids on the. So as soon as that happens, you're like, Mom, I want the tape.
Right.
You get the tape.
Right.
Then do you just feel this? Does it take over every part of your brain at this point?
Yeah, at that point, it's we're listening on repeat. Now, again, this was cassette tape time. So for those listening who didn't live back then, you could rewind and play a song. And there was definitely days that I would be on just a Happy Birthday loop, of course.
It's wild to me that that's your favorite.
It makes,
Oh, thank you.
oh my word.
We've just had,
Get ready for the.
we've had some cards enter
Wow,
the
wow,
room.
wow, wow.
This is coming up later.
I can't wait. Yeah, so that was my favorite, and I would rewind it and play, but then it was kind of just letting it play through. And I remember it being, my house was not necessarily a house that was always full of music. If it was two artists, Michael Jackson's Bad or Rick Astley's one album at the time.
Okay.
Wow, that's hip.
Okay.
Though.
And that was kind of it. And so for me, this became like the soundtrack because I didn't necessarily, it's not that my house was music, it wasn't Footloose, but it was like, it wasn't that there was constant music playing. I know other people's homes I go into and they've always got something on. That wasn't the way my house was. So for me, I think it really was exploring, what is that soundtrack that's just on as I'm doing anything else, as I'm organizing the Barbie case, for example.
Okay.
And it was definitely, I was vacillating between, because after I got Step by Step, then I wanted to fill out my catalog.
Of course.
Then I had to get Hangin' Tough. And I think there was one more that I had. Funky Funky Christmas I never got. And that was devastating for me.
Why was that not?
It's a great question. I don't know. I feel like I definitely was asking for it.
Bad parenting.
Questionable choices.
Yeah.
Questionable choices. But it's also possible that the deep fall happened before the next Christmas when perhaps I would have been getting it.
I know.
Yeah.
Sometimes it happens so quick. But wait. But before we get into that.
Yes, of course.
I'd really love to know if you'd rank the New Kids from favorite to least favorite.
The men?
Yes.
Of course. Well, at the time, of course, number one is Jonathan without question.
yeah.
Sure.
Number two, it was probably Danny. I was going for the underdog.
Okay.
Wow.
Now it's going to get interesting. I think then Joey. I think then Jordan and then Donnie. Now there's also
Ooh.
another important aspect I have to add. My cousin, who I'm very close with, who I host my podcast with, we had an unsaid rule as children where if one of us chose a person in a band, that's off limits to you then.
Wow.
We don't want any crossover.
Mm-hmm.
She was a Jordan Knight gal. It's why it's so low on my list. I think the only reason why Donnie would be lower would be because I was a rules gal and his bad boy nature made me uncomfortable.
He hated the rules.
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
I was wondering about that because it's a certain attitude where some kids are like well behaved, like, oh, I don't want to get out of line. And it's like he's trouble.
Yeah, Donnie might like offer you drugs.
Yeah.
For sure he was going to offer you drugs.
Or like rev his motorcycle.
Yeah. That dirt bike.
His jeans might have a little rip. And
There's
then
going to be a rip there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you start to were there posters? Were there things like that? So it was just you're all in now.
I'm all in. This is also the time of like the Teen Beat, the Bop, the Big
Sure.
Bopper.
Okay.
Those kinds of magazines. So that became a thing too. There was definitely, that's when the collecting starts.
where you have to carefully remove the staples from the inside
course.
to get the big fold-out poster out.
Yeah. So there was a lot of that, a lot of those posters on the walls. For
Okay.
sure.
For the dolls with the rat tails.
Thank you.
Did the rat tails stay intact or did you cut them off?
No, they stayed intact. Now,
Okay.
again, I only ever had the Jonathan doll. I didn't get the full collection, but I also had the Tori Spelling, Donna Martin 90210 doll. So
Wow,
that
that's
was
bizarre.
Yep.
So-
Yeah, like I said,
so
I liked an
you're-
underdog.
yeah.
She was my favorite from
You're-
that show.
You got Jonathan
coolest
Knight,
one.
Yeah, exactly.
Tori Spelling.
Exactly. So they were
Yeah.
they took up a lot of space in the Barbie container together. I should also be noted that the dolls, the New Kids dolls, had little earrings,
Okay.
and they were accurate. So if those boys had only a piercing in the left ear, that doll indicated as such. If it was
Sure.
both ears, they're both there.
Nice.
Yeah.
I appreciate
I
the
appreciated that
accuracy.
also. Yeah.
Yeah. Were there people in your life who hated New Kids on the Block? Because it is a very gendered thing in a lot of
is.
ways, where it's like,
Yeah, you don't often find the little boy that's excited about New Kids.
and it's just like, because it's like, oh, the teen heartthrob for the girls, and then the boys are like, I hate that.
Oh yeah.
Like whether they're threatened by it or whatever it is, it just seems like the lines are pretty hard.
100%. I think definitely at school, I remember it was honestly like it was a constant source of conversation. Like that's how big it was at the time. It was like it was a cultural phenomenon. I feel like for a period of time, and I do remember that the boys really were loving to any disparaging things. Of course, at the time, we're also talking about the early '90s, so different time. There was some hate speech happening, in regards to those boys.
Well, they're too tough.
They are too
They were
tough.
probably scared.
Did
they also danced. And that always,
Yeah.
I think that intimidates boys.
Yes.
I think
If
so.
they
absolutely.
see men or boys that can dance, that's like, I mean, good luck,
Yeah.
Well,
right?
because it's also a thing where it's like these things that girls are eating up,
Right.
these guys are doing, and they can't do it, so
Right.
they just get mad at it.
Yeah.
Right. I've heard Vanderpump Rules anti-hero Tom Sandoval talk a lot about how his value he felt as a young child was because he could dance.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I totally buy that.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I mean, this was I don't know if you saw the It first chapter, the recent horror movie. that
No,
came out
I
a few years-
didn't.
That's one of the stories, and is one of the kids, one of the boys, secretly loves New Kids on the Block,
Oh, I love this.
and like hides the poster on the back of his door, and it's very sweet.
That's so cute.
So what were the other kids? Were they like Guns N' Roses fans, and they're like
Yeah.
who were the enemy?
What were the good question? Who was the enemy? I think at that time, I remember Criss Cross got really big after that. I remember
Sure.
that there was a real kind of sharp turn into Criss Cross eventually.
Okay.
I didn't get as into them personally,
Okay.
but I remember there was a lot of that. I think that it was, I think
Because you liked Rules, and they're wearing their clothes
they're
backwards.
wearing them backwards, and that's insane.
That's
Tom,
no,
that's insane.
They're breaking the rules.
What are we talking about?
That's not how you put your clothes on.
It's not. I remember Inside Out and Backwards Day. Also, this is triggering some real memories for me here, where we had to wear our clothes inside out and backwards. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't love it.
No,
I was like, emotionally, this is hard for me.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
like that at all.
No.
Hard to sit.
Mhm.
There's too much real estate in the front then. Yeah,
That just seems like a day where no one really learned much
yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's
because they're just
true.
physically
It's
uncomfortable.
those days where it's just like, why are we at school today?
Yeah.
If this is what school is going to be, can we just not be here
Can we
and
just
have
not
fun
be
at home?
here? Exactly. And I do remember, and it's so funny that this is like this very hardcore memory that's come up, but I remember putting on my red jeans inside out and backwards, and then a striped shirt inside out and backwards.
Mhm.
And when I left the house, I'll be honest, I was pretty pumped.
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh.
And there was an assembly, and I had to go to the front to get something. I won a terrific kids award or something. No
Damn.
big deal. It's a pretty big deal. And as I got up and walked, I heard this like snickering, and then I realized that I had chose my red jeans, and they had been too big in the waist, and my mom had to sew in elastic.
Oh, no.
And now I've revealed it to everyone that
Oh, no.
yeah. And then I was like,
Yeah.
oh, so it was a real hard crash down.
That's
Yeah.
a core memory
It's
right
a core
there.
memory that I haven't thought about
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
since.
Oops.
I love it. This is what this show does,
Yeah.
you guys.
Yeah.
Come on.
Not
Yeah.
so terrific after all.
Not so terrific that day.
Yeah.
Did you buy the toughness in Hangin' Tough when they are describing how tough they are? Like, did you
It's so funny. Yeah.
buy it? Were you like, oh my gosh, they are very tough? Or was there any part of you that was like, I don't really think that this is accurate?
I really bought it.
Okay.
Which is interesting
Yeah.
considering, again, they're talking about they're tough and they're doing some like really, I would say, not tough dance moves. That's
Yeah.
not a judgment of the dance.
No.
It's just doesn't really jive.
It's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. But no, I bought it 100%. And I think it's interesting because again, the bad boy thing pushed me too far, but I think I liked the idea that they were kind of, street, at
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
time, seemingly street.
Sure.
Very street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From Dorchester,
Massachusetts. Yeah.
Because there's one lyric in that song that I didn't notice till today that was like something along the lines of "Leave us alone, or you're gonna get stomped."
Yeah.
Which I'm like, that's violent.
Yeah.
I do think that there's an element, like Donnie Wahlberg technically was one of the founders of the group. Why do I know this? Don't worry about it. And I do think there was an element that there was one of the fighters. Like I think they were doing fighting before they got into music.
They were doing fighting like
I think
professionally.
I think they were doing fighting, probably not as a career, just for
Just
fun.
doing fighting for fun.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that there was some element of that. Do I think that they were curb stomping people? Probably not.
That's exactly what
Probably
I
not.
Yeah.
was thinking.
Yeah.
How did you express your fandom? Did you like write letters? Did you draw pictures or write fan fiction?
Never got into the fan fiction, which is a shame. Definitely wrote letters. Definitely wrote well, I guess actually I did. It's funny. I guess it was fan fiction. I would write stories about us together. I never viewed it that
Okay.
way, but you're right.
I just viewed it as
factual.
I just viewed it as my diary. My dreams for us to be together, what that would look like. I vividly remember going to Fabricland. That's probably a Canadian chain. It's exactly how it sounds. Craft store. And I was painstakingly choosing different colors of felt because that was when I was in my Danny phase. And I wanted to make a little mini flag that said, I love Danny.
Wow.
And so I chose like a royal blue background and then a bright red. And I cut out the letters and glued them on.
Where did this flag go? Was this kind of like...
Yeah.
What are they called? Those flags like from the 50s? Like high school?
Like a pennant?
Pennant flag?
Oh, yeah.
I never knew. I only knew what those were because of like Archie
They're
comics.
in movies and things like that. Those, yeah.
But they're they're
triangular.
so cool. So is
Yeah.
it that the flag was supposed to hang in your bedroom or was it supposed to go on like your bike or
I
something?
think it was supposed to hang, and then I didn't want to like soil it by putting a thumbtack or push pin
God,
through,
no.
or like putting tape on the back.
No,
So
because
it
we all
just-
know that destroys fabric.
It destroys it. Absolutely. I couldn't risk that. I'm also a child that never stuck a sticker on anything because then it
Okay.
could never be used again.
Sure.
You're
Wow,
getting a real
yeah,
view
So
okay,
in
you
here.
just had
I'm getting
sheets
it.
of stickers.
I had
Just
sheets and sheets of
Were you
stickers.
waiting for the moment to put a sticker on something and the moment never came?
Or you
Yes.
knew the moment would never come.
I think
On
I
some
think
level.
that sadly I thought on some level it's never going to come.
Yeah.
Well, now, do you still have these stickers?
I do somewhere. And I did as I got older, as I became more of a teenager, that behavior kind of changed and I started using the stickers. But here's what I would do is I would just buy doubles.
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Thank
so
God.
that I had some
Yeah.
pristine ones
Thank
and
God.
the ones that I had on my binder.
Your
or-
backup stickers.
And I would also get binders with clear pockets.
Okay.
So I could make a collage and stick it in, but it wasn't committed to being on the actual binder. It wasn't wasted.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's how you waste stickers.
Yeah,
is
that's
by
how they're,
using
yeah,
them.
exactly. They're not fulfilling their true
Yeah.
destiny, which is to sit dusty in a drawer. Speaking of drawers, but to answer it, where did the I Love Danny flag go? The answer is in my nightstand drawer. So then at night, I could open the drawer and pull it out and look at it, and that would be the last thing I'd do.
That is
and then
so
I'd
much
tuck it
weirder.
into bed. It's extremely odd behavior. It's very, I mean, again, it's really, it's resonating with me.
Did
Yeah.
your parents ever find the flag in your drawer and ask you about it?
My mother was with me when I bought the supplies.
Yeah.
And I remember poring over this decision vividly. And it's interesting because I feel like a lot of my most vivid memories from that time were surrounding New Kids on the Block. And I remember saying to her, I'm going to make this say I Heart Danny, and her giving a like, oh God, like some sort of like, so then I was like, I have to hide this. So I don't think that she ever found it. If she did, she never told me. That was
Okay.
definitely like a secret shameful behavior.
Oh, that's
So
funny.
somewhere on this planet,
Yeah.
is there a box or whatever that has the stories, the letters, the pennant, the flag?
I'm going to let you in on a detail that's going to probably shock you. I never threw anything away. So
That was going to be my next guess.
Yeah.
I was like, you
So-
have to have an organized box of these
Oh yeah.
things.
Now I think it's probably still at my parents' house in Canada, but I think it definitely all exists.
Sure.
For sure.
Amazing.
For sure. I can try and dig it up.
Oh my God, that would
Yeah.
be amazing.
That would be incredible.
Yeah, I'll ask her.
Did you ever get to see them perform live?
No.
Heartbreaking.
Until I was an adult.
That was going to
Okay.
be my next question.
Yeah. So this would have been probably 2017, maybe 2016, somewhere in that range.
Mhm.
And because I never got to see them perform as a child, I was like, I have to take this opportunity now. This is
Absolutely.
it. And so what started to happen was I was like, well, I guess if I'm going to really turn into the Swerve, is I should explore their new music.
Oh, we just
Mhm.
listened to one of their
We
newer
explored
songs
some of
on
their
the way
new
over
music.
here.
I
yeah.
bet. And here's what happened is I got really into one song,
Which one?
The Whisper.
Oh, haven't heard that
Okay.
yet.
Yes. So this
Is
was
it as good as Happy Birthday?
it's shockingly, I think
Or
it is.
Funky Christmas.
A funky, funky Christmas. Have a funky, funky Christmas. I could sing them all. The point is, they're all in there, guys. So I got really into this song, and I was like, look, this is great. I'm leading up to the concert. It was in Vegas. I went with some gal pals. I bought a new T-shirt, which I tried to find for today, but I think may have gone at the wayside, unfortunately.
Covered in red wine. and-
In tears.
Yeah.
And I went to the show, and here's what I can reflect about that experience. When these boys were doing the classic numbers, Hangin' Tough, Step by Step, those kinds of songs that they obviously did thousands of times. They were flawless.
Sure.
Truly, like, impressively flawless.
I'm sure.
And then when they would get to any of the newer stuff, it was an absolute shit show.
Really?
I mean, out of time, not in sync, like people in the wrong place. Like it was such a disparity between the two. It was a delight, but not, you know what I mean? Like, it was so funny to me to watch, like, it's not clicking anymore.
It kind of sounds like it would be the best part of the show.
It was. Only to be topped by one detail. So as we watch this show, and again, it's a delight on the nostalgia factor. It's also making me laugh. Like, this is fantastic. The show ends. They do an encore. It's over. And you think, okay, it's done. Au contraire.
Okay.
Donnie Wahlberg takes his shirt off,
Oh my God.
goes to the side of the stage, grabs a stack of what has to be maybe 15 white towels, and then physically rubs them up and down his chest to get some sweat on each one.
So
and then starts tossing them to the crowd.
Oh my God.
And these women who are all my age or older are living for it.
And
Like,
they've been drinking like monsters.
Yeah.
monsters. Oh, I
Yeah.
drank a tumbler of white wine. It was a
I'm
full bottle in a
sure.
cup.
Yeah.
These women were like, it was as though we were all 7 again. They are like, I need this sweat towel more than I've ever needed anything. And I think for me, again, it was the look on his face while he was doing it. And the look was basically like, you done good, Don. Like, it was like,
Amazing.
you've really given a good experience here.
Yeah.
Now, when I walked away from that concert, here's the thing. Are you thinking she started to go, oh, what a laugh, what a lark? I started looking into New Kids on the Block cruises.
Bingo.
Yeah.
And and this is the joke about this Outgrown, is that I outgrew this band twice.
Okay. That's so funny. The rare double.
Right. I came back in what would have been 30 years later-ish, 30 years later. And then I got really into it. And the gals that I was there with, I was like, here's what's going on. I get another friend of mine. I was like, you used to like New Kids on the Block. Here's what we can do. There's a cruise coming next year. We missed the deadline for this year. But next year, there's a funky pajama party.
Oh my God.
You know, this is what we got to do. And it faded.
Sure. Like
Before that you could commit to
Before the deposit had to go in, I guess I forgot about it.
I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like a similar thing happened to me with the boy band BTS.
yeah.
More
You were
recently.
Right.
super into it.
Super into it. And then just one day,
I remember you were just like, I don't like this one song as much. Like a new song came out, you're just kind of like,
oh, I like this one. And then
I was like, I'm
suddenly
kinda
you're
not
like, your
liking
love
this new
just
one.
fades.
and then
Well,
suddenly you were like,
yeah, which is a perfect segue into when did the initial obsession, like, do you remember like a moment when that started to fade?
It was the hotel incident
Which one?
with Donnie.
What is?
with Donnie.
Donnie got in trouble.
He got in trouble.
Tell me about this.
There was perhaps an arson charge.
Donnie Wahlberg was actually a bad
And
guy.
I think it turns out he was actually hanging tough.
Yeah.
He set a hotel room on fire?
That's the way. Now, listen, don't quote me on the details. That's definitely the way I remember it at the time. And so I would have been, it was probably a couple years after. I think I was probably 9, maybe. I remember this hit the news, and I remember it being such a scandal. And it was ultimately what led to the demise of the band.
Wow.
Yeah, was he went too far.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I, being a rules gal, I was like, well,
Yeah.
maybe this is it.
don't
Maybe
know.
maybe they aren't what I thought they were.
Once the cops get involved, you're out.
Yeah.
It's bigger than me.
Yeah. Wow,
bigger
that's
than
so
me.
interesting that you were swayed by something in like their personal lives.
Yeah, and I do remember my mother also talking about it a lot, that it was like he went too far, he ruined it for all of them, and I think I was like, well, maybe they aren't going to be the Beatles, like, you know, maybe she was
Yeah.
right.
So, yeah.
I can't keep liking these guys now.
I do love that your mom had opinions about this.
Yeah.
Hard.
That it
Hard
wasn't
opinions.
just like, oh, you just go stay over there and I'll
Nope.
be over here with my Rick Astley records.
So you're like, I don't want to get in trouble with these guys are trouble.
Right.
I'm not going to get in trouble. I'm not going down with the ship.
Right. It's interesting because I think other bands like you know, the Motley Crues, the Guns N' Roses, like if they're setting things on fire, the fans are like, heck yeah, let's
Exactly.
do this. But I really remember there being like a genuine shift. Like all of a sudden the girls at school weren't wearing the backpacks as much. The jackets weren't on as much. Like it really did feel abrupt in my like, again, my child memory, which may not be obviously accurate. That is how I remember it, that it felt like it was like within 6 months we'd moved on.
That's so fascinating.
But that is the lifespan of like
the boy
band is, it's a matter of months sometimes, like maybe a couple of years.
Yeah, that you'll be hardcore into it.
Because it cycles through. And because the thing is, nobody wants to inherit the boy band that kids 2 years older than them liked. It's like, they're just like, that's not mine. That's yours. I'll find my own thing.
Right.
So it's almost like there's a hard cutoff on it also. And then there's that moment where the kids who are super into it are almost want to distance themselves from it because it reminds them of when they were younger. Like, well, I'm not 8 anymore. I'm 11 now.
Yeah.
I can't. I don't
like
what I like
shame
then.
about what you liked when you were younger or something.
Was there any of that did you, like, was it a passive distancing from it, or was it I don't like them anymore?
It was passive. It was definitely, I don't think I was like, it was like a fade out, you know, it was like a very sad breakup where it's like, it's not that I hate you. It's just that we grew apart. I think that's how it felt. But it's interesting you say that, because I think I was around 10 when I really started discovering the music that I probably still like now. So completely different genre. I was staying up like way too late and watching music videos late at night and stuff like that and discovering new things. And then that kind of path did become a large part of my personality that I think persisted. Sadly, New Kids on the Block had to die in order for that to happen. They walked so that
yeah, because that was
Green Day could run
exactly. Yes.
So were you watching Much Music then?
Much Music,
right?
yeah.
Which is the Canadian version of MTV. Yeah.
So what replaced New Kids?
So I got very into, there was this really cool time, and I won't belabor this because I could talk about it forever, but there was this really cool time in music in Canada in like the late 90s, early 2000s, where there was all these bands that got like kind of like the alt rock persuasion that got massive in Canada, and they never broke down here. A couple maybe did. Our Lady Peace, I think, did okay down here. But I was really into that genre of music. I was really into these bands, The Age of Electric, Limblifter, The Tea Party, Treble Charger. There's like Econoline Crush. There was all these bands that were like super, super popular, and you could go to like a free summer festival in your hometown and they'd all be playing, right?
Wow.
That's cool.
And so that was kind of like, I mean, I still love that music now. I mean, that's the nostalgia I'll listen to. But then that got me into Green Day, and then Blink-182, and then it went on that path.
But you also had your neck of the woods, Sum 41.
Totally.
Were Canadian,
yes.
right? That's a Canadian. Derek Wilby,
yes.
right? And how about Avril Lavigne? Was that also
So that was when I was in high school, and she lived one town over. And I'm going to be honest with you, I always had a bit of a contentious feeling towards Avril because
same.
I felt like she was getting to do how I had always identified, and I was like, oh, this isn't fair. And I will say, I went to a school that had a dress code, so you had to only wear certain colors. You had to wear like, you know, white and blue. But the one thing that the dress code never said was anything about ties. So I wore crazy neckties all the time, and it was before she had hit.
Okay.
So when she hit and then there was the ties, I couldn't wear my ties anymore.
Oh no, that's
because people thought I was idolizing
Keeping
her,
her,
and that was rough.
Yeah, that's very difficult.
Yeah, I hold a grudge, and she doesn't necessarily deserve that. You know,
she maybe
a
does.
little bit.
She's doing okay. She's doing okay.
Well, do you want to see these cards?
Yeah, let's.
Here you go.
You're gonna open them?
You can open it.
This is
there we
big.
go.
This is. I know this goes
this
against
challenges me.
everything. I know
This
because
is
we basically what's happening right now. We got
With
some
these New Kids
pristine
on the Block
New Kids on the Block
cards.
trading cards, super gloss photo
I'm like
cards.
shaking.
And I see there's one sticker in here.
Look,
Where's it gonna go?
right in
and
Lauren's
so opening something
book.
like this is a big deal.
Look, if I'm really careful, I can make sure that this wax, I can put
Yeah.
them back in the wax.
Wow. I have some
I remember these.
Wow,
I had a lot of these cards.
this is a good pose from Jordan.
I remember that one. I totally remember that one.
It's this. It's hands outstretched.
Oh.
Like, put the cuffs
There
on
That's
you
me.
my
go.
guy.
That's your right there.
There he is, looking as uncomfortable as ever.
Yep, that looks like
Yeah.
a weird pose.
Now, see,
Yeah.
the fun thing about these was that on one side it would be the card, but then on the other side it made a poster.
Oh,
It's a
wow.
giant puzzle.
You could have
yeah.
taped together. No way I was going to do that.
Yeah.
but,
All
you
right,
know.
wait. On the back of this card, it says reluctant idols. New kids on the block still consider themselves regular guys. When Jonathan, Jordan, Joe, Danny, and Donnie think about their superstar status, it really blows their minds, all capital. Like, just the first letters are capitalized to blow their minds. Is that a
Yeah.
song?
I don't think so.
That's just
Not that I
weird.
remember.
That's just a weird card
Yeah.
choice.
This one says social issues.
What?
New kids are glad that their celebrity status gives them the chance to make fans aware of important social issues like
Birthdays?
education, crime, and drugs. Which I'm not sure how they wanted drug awareness if Donnie's just like, yeah, try you should try weed. Like that's his drug awareness is
Yeah.
like drug education.
I feel like in this card, Jordan is reaching out and saying, put the handcuffs on me.
Yeah.
I've been bad. I've been a bad boy.
I've been so tough, officer.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's also like I just want you to check in on this one of Jonathan. Like this is really
He's brooding.
he's
that
very
picture.
brooding. Now here's something fun though. Where did it go? So on this one, going platinum, the latest album for New Kids on the Block, Merry Merry Christmas, goes platinum thanks to loyal New Kids fans everywhere. New Kids will be loving you forever. First of all, I remember Loving You Forever. Great song. Secondly, was it called Merry Merry Christmas? I really thought it was Funky Funky
I'm
Christmas.
pretty sure it's Funky Funky Christmas.
Yeah.
Right?
Where are the stickers is the other question.
That's a good
Hey,
question.
yeah, wait.
Look, we're going to need
Peel,
to get our money
yeah.
back.
This one is the one
Yeah.
with the cuffs. That is a
And good
sticker.
news, this one will highlight how Joey McIntyre, he would cut the top set of the hat so that his curly hair would come out up top.
You're joking.
Okay.
That is horrible.
It's horrifying.
Can I see?
Please.
That
So,
sounds,
Please.
yeah.
That is the stupidest.
Yep.
That is
Well,
so
but
Yeah.
it can be
Look at my
topped.
hat.
I know what you're thinking. How can it be topped? This picture. Look at
Look at
what's
that.
happening here.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
He's like, I got some watches to sell you.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you remember when they changed to NKOTB to try to seem a little tougher during the original run of the band?
I feel like it happened around the time of the scandal.
Okay.
They were rebranding. That's how my mind's eye remembered it. I
Yeah.
remember thinking I'll be honest, I eye rolled a little bit at that.
Sure.
I was like, come on.
Own it.
I think they own it. Exactly. I think they didn't want to be called kids anymore. I think that was part of it too.
Sure. It's always the hard thing when you put if your band name or your personal name is anything that involves Lil or young or kids.
Well,
Yeah.
look
It's
at
a
the
tricky
Beach Boys.
thing.
These
Yeah.
guys are 90 years old and they're the Beach Boys.
Yeah, it gets
Right.
a little
Yeah.
embarrassing
Yeah.
later on.
Yeah.
So did their music have any impact on you creatively as a musician?
You know, I want to say no, but I don't think that that's true. I think, these guys, I think,
How could you not
how could you not?
be influenced by him?
They
I
look like
think-
stand-up comics.
They
a little
do.
bit.
It's like
really do.
These kind of look like Paula Poundstone promo
yeah,
images.
that's yeah.
Yep. Again, yeah.
Yeah,
I
like-
think, to be honest, all jokes aside, when I write music, like I don't write songs that are about anything other than relationships. Like it's just never. I've tried, and I'm like, this doesn't feel right. And so I do think that there is an element of that you could tie back to those seminal, the love songs that they had. I'll Be Loving You Forever, for example. Now I understand what you're saying. Hanging Tough, not a love song, but Step by Step, kind of a love song when you think about it.
Sure.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa, yeah. On that
yeah.
on that
On that note,
topic,
can we hear? I think we need to put our headphones on for
please.
1 second.
there's one
There's one
bef-
second.
Even
section.
before you had suggested this topic, Lauren.
I kept playing this over and over.
Tom
for
had been
Julia.
like, "Hey, do you remember that line in Step by Step where he does where
Okay,
they're
here we go.
counting?" Okay, yeah, you go for it.
Here it comes.
We can have lots of fun.
That's right.
it.
Okay, we can hit. We can have lots of fun. Like,
Was that Danny?
I'm pretty sure that was Danny.
I'm pretty sure
Whichever
that was
one's
Danny.
the worst one, I'm
We can
assuming.
have lots of fun. Like it
We
sounds
can
so
have lots of fun.
non-committal. He's just like, we can have lots of fun. Like he's pulling away. Like No, you need to get back up on the mic.
It's delivered in such an dramatically unsexy way.
Yeah.
100%.
That it's
Yeah.
shocking.
Yeah.
It feels like that was a boy who got pulled along into doing something that he really didn't have a
Yeah.
want to do.
No,
No.
it's said with a big shrug.
Yeah, and that you can imagine that in the booth, the producer being like, "Okay, Danny, that was great. Let's
Yeah.
do another one, and like maybe
Yeah.
have fun with it." And he's like, "Cool.
Yeah.
We can have lots of fun." Like absolutely no adjustment being made.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like that's the kind of thing a teacher would say, "Are you asking me or are you telling me?" Because he's almost saying
Right.
like we can have lots of fun. Like he's not
I don't know.
Maybe we can have lots of fun.
Yeah, because then some of the other ones are just like, like they're really
There's so much
delivering
we
it.
can do.
Yeah.
You know, like- and then the ones like step 3 is like
It's just you and me.
Yeah.
And then step 5 is like the time has arrived.
Yeah.
yeah.
For what?
Maybe there might not have been a whole lot of craftsmanship going into some
the
of these.
lyrics are like noticeably way worse than other boy bands.
Bad. Yeah.
They're very bad.
Yeah, step 1, we can have lots of fun. Step 2, it's just me and you. Step 3, it's just you and me. I believe those
Yeah.
are, it's pretty close, right?
I think step 2 is there's so much
There's so much we can do.
Oh.
Should we hear all 5 steps?
Listen,
hear
I
the
mean, just
steps.
for science.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get to the bottom. I mean, because this is a step-by-step guide to love.
Have lots of fun.
Step 2, there's so much we can do. Step 3, it's just you.
Wow. I think that was Jordan.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I can give you
That's
more.
Joey. I can give you more.
5, don't you know that the time has arrived?
I think that was Johnny.
I thought Donnie was there's so much we can do.
Oh, maybe.
Well, there's no way to ever
Who was
figure out who
Jonathan
was
then?
what.
Maybe Jonathan was 4.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because they, in some ways, were the first, other than if you want to get into like the Jackson 5 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But in many ways,
Menudo or something.
right. They
Yeah.
were the first of that movement, right? And
Yeah.
it's interesting because it feels like you would think that this would be a band that would come later because it doesn't feel like it was like, let's just put a bunch of cute young white boys together and it doesn't matter what they're singing, it's fine. It feels like there was some connection to wanting it to be good, if that makes any sense, which is interesting because upon these re-listens, I'm going to be honest, not great. not great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's a big concern with appearing cool.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, yeah.
and hard and
It's all
street. And like,
attitude.
we grew up in a small town. We didn't have anything.
You have to realize this is hip hop culture is ascendant at this point.
Right.
And like,
So
and
these
street
guys,
cred is a big important part
They're
of that.
jumping on the train base because also you have New Edition was
Right.
a very successful all black boy band.
Yeah.
So this is like basically
The new kids are kind of lifting some stuff.
oh,
from-
absolutely.
yeah.
No, they're taking the attitude of it, but making sure it's like sanitized for
Absolutely.
it's just it's for white kids.
Yeah.
They're trying to make it, and that's just like that's the game in pop music. It's always whether it's Elvis kind of taking music, the black
Right.
music, and doing his thing. Eminem doing the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not even a judgment on talent because Eminem's obviously insanely talented and Elvis insanely talented. Danny insanely talented.
Yeah, I think he falls in the ranks of.
But it is a thing. It says that's the trend. It's like how do we
Right.
whether it's even Pat Boone doing Little Richard songs
Right.
in the late 50s, just like this New Kids were a version of that, kind of just trying to just like
For 7-year-old white girls.
yeah,
And it hit. I mean,
Yeah.
it really
absolutely.
hit. Yeah.
Oh
It
no,
hit
there's
so
a reason
hard.
why that happens.
Right.
Well, and around
right.
this time, Vanilla Ice was doing the same thing.
Vanilla Ice is doing the same thing. Yeah. So there is a version of just kind of like hopping on what the culture was about, but these guys are trying to be tough the way like a lot of hip hop artists were talking about being tough, except it maybe didn't land as much. So then you end up
Right.
with Donnie Wahlberg in a hotel room
Right.
trying to say, oh, you want to see tough? I'll show you
show you
tough.
tough.
I'll set this desk on fire.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
And then I'll do a
it is.
type 5.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I'm going to be over at I'm going to be at the
Comedy
Yuck
Store.
Yucks this weekend.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for
Like,
Yuck Yucks.
It's
Absolutely.
like, just with the stuff you do, so people can just know the stuff you do. You're on Not Dead Yet, and
Yes.
you have it must be the greatest role in a way to be the you're like the sniper
Yeah.
on the show.
Yeah.
It's all killer. Everything you do, you get to come in and just crush every time you're on screen.
Yeah, it's great.
What does that feel like to get to be in that spot?
It's really cool, you know. I think it's interesting because I played Dina on Superstore for 6 years, who was a very kind of specific character, and it was a dream and a joy. Lexi on Not Dead Yet is to me is so different, and I think some people think that they were similar, possibly just because they're both like, I don't know, strong women. But I think what's really fun about Lexi is that she's so moneyed and so statused that it kind of gives you the carte blanche that you can really push it, right? Like you can really go to places that maybe are would feel less realistic for a less moneyed kind of character.
Sure.
So it's really a joy. It's a joy to kind of like get to come in and play that stuff. And you know, as somebody who like has a background in improv, I'm always improvising and in anything that I do. And so it's like a really delicious character to get to kind of just live in for a little bit, because it also is pretty far away from me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the characters who are like so drastically wealthy that they're just like out of touch with humanity. It's a very fun thing
It's
to
just
play
It's
with.
so
funny.
fun
Yeah.
because you and I think the challenge and what's also really delightful about it is then also still keeping her likable, right? So it's like how do you ride that line, which I think the writers do a great job of as well. How do you ride the line of this person is completely out of touch and is so privileged, but you still root for her on some level.
Yeah, that's the trick, is that
Yeah.
tightrope, because
Yeah.
it's so easy to lose the audience. It's just like, oh, this is just a jerk.
Right.
I don't want to hang out with a jerk.
Right.
To me, it's always felt like with TV, it's just like you're letting people in your house, and you're
Yeah.
like, would you let this person in your house? It's just like, yeah, I'd let this person in my house. They're funny and maybe a little pompous, but yeah. So you just kill it on the show,
Oh,
and
thank
it's just
you.
really amazing.
Thank
And then
you.
also just your musical career is such an exciting thing, because this is a relatively new development.
Yeah,
Right.
it's something
in
you,
your
you
life.
Didn't, you didn't start as like a teenager. Like
Well, here's the thing. I was 13 when I got my first guitar, and I started writing I think I had one song that was 6 minutes long. And I wanted you to know,
Cool.
I played that publicly. I played that in front of a room full of people at a school assembly. That they can't get that time back. I always wanted to be a rock star. That was really my dream. I really would have preferred to be a musician or a rock star than an actor. I think that acting is easier. It comes easier to me. So I've actually always played and written music. I just never really did it past, once I got some sort of like concept of what is good or bad, I was like, I should maybe not do this in front of people anymore. So for years, like the whole time I was on Superstore, I would come home, I would like sit with my guitar to like unwind. I'd write these songs. I'm not a great songwriter, but it wasn't really about that for me. It was more just about the practice of doing it and of creating and using a different part of my brain. And so when I turned 40 last year, I was like, I should really like do this. Like I should put on a concert. Like this was always my dream.
Sure.
absolutely.
And so I hired a band and we did a set of covers. It was the greatest night of my life. And I was like, you should be doing this. Like, why not? Life is too short. And so then I started, one of the guys in the band was like, I produce music. Like if you have songs. And I was like, you want me to just play you the songs that I wrote?
Wow,
Like this is,
okay.
and I remember like, again, like people always think it's funny when like comedians or actors are like, shy, but I was like, it was the most nerve-wracking experience of my life to like walk into this guy's studio and like pull out my acoustic guitar and then like sitting this far, just go, okay, I play the song about my feelings now. Okay, great.
Oh yeah.
It was so vulnerable and like nude but it was so wonderful to watch something that I had created in such a seemingly small way then become this like full song. Like it was like just such a wonderful dream. So it's been like really fulfilling for me.
Yeah, because when you started, posting more of your music stuff on your social media and
Yeah.
all that, we had, conversations where like, this is just the coolest thing that she's doing this, because like so many people are so afraid to like start performing music publicly past the age of, or at 40 or past the age of 40. And it's just like, to me, that's some of the most exciting stuff, is when people who are quote unquote older, like, because music is such a youth obsessed industry. And it's like, so, or filmmaking for
or just
that
to
matter.
not even just to not put the limits on yourself. Like life
Yeah.
puts enough limits on people.
Exactly.
Like why you shouldn't put limits on yourself, because
Right.
life does that enough. So it's really impressive. We just want to convey how awesome that
it's
is.
inspiring too,
Aw,
because it's
thank
just like, because
you.
it's not that's some of the stuff I'm most inspired by, is like when people who are quote unquote older like they pick up a new thing and like down a path that like people might think it's potentially embarrassing.
Well, you're not
Or something
supposed,
I'm thinking about myself.
You're
right
like not
now.
supposed to do
No,
it.
but no,
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's like in entertainment, it's often like, no, you do this one thing, and if you veer off to this other thing, people are gonna like not be as supportive or something.
Right.
And like it's been really cool to see you do that, and it's like, I don't know, it's just so
It's really
because the
amazing.
music you make is like pop punk
Yeah.
music.
Mhm.
Yeah, it really is that like early 2000s, like that Blink-182 kind of world
Mhm.
for sure. Which is what I just loved and still love, and so then I think what's interesting is like really for me as I've gotten older. I lost a friend very sadly a few years ago, and it really refocused my whole lens, because I was like, why are we not pursuing joy? Like, yes, we have to pursue ways to make currency to live, of course.
Unfortunately.
But I think that there's really, I don't feel like we're really taught that as kids, like, or our generation was never about like, what are the things that feed your soul? Like, that's not like conversations that we ever had or I ever had. And so now looking at it where it's truly like, it's like aging is such a privilege. It's like, why not try and wring the most out of that time that you can?
Absolutely. And like, I think there should be more voices in these fields that are like coming from a different perspective. Like, it's not all about relationships you have at 20.
Right.
You know, it's like, I want to hear a pop punk song from someone who's like 52.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like,
Totally.
what would those lyrics be like? Like
100%.
like a
And that was part of
middle-aged
the
punk star.
that was part of the original like concept that I had, was that I was like, what does the music that I listened to when I was 15 look like writing it
Okay.
at 40? What does that look like lyrically? Is it about 401k? No.
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
But ultimately I think it like still becomes, it's a similar thing. It's just slightly different. But yeah, it's just been, and I think the big thing for me is that what has left is like, I just don't care if people don't like it.
Sure.
You know, and I think that that's something that does come more easily with age. And
it's the best.
so for me, I'm like, I know how joyful this is, and I know that you see how joyful it is. And whether whether it's to your taste or not is irrelevant. That's whatever. But anyone who's denying that it's not joyful is wrong.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it makes it a lot easier to then just be like, well, I can just go out there and look like a fucking idiot, and I don't care.
Well, that's on. How concerned are you with looking tough in your music?
And
I
by extension, hanging.
Of
tough.
course. That's a big priority for me. I have to make sure. Did I
Sure.
recently play a show where I ensured that the audience knew it was okay that I was in a skirt because I was also wearing shorts? I did. So obviously my commitment to toughness is high.
That is
Sure.
very rough and tough.
Very, very tough. Very tough.
If you looked in a crystal ball and
Yeah.
you saw 2025
Yeah.
New Kids on the Block cruise featuring Lauren Ash.
Oh my God.
Could you imagine what would that be? Who would you push into traffic to play on the New Kids on the Block cruise?
Well, possibly Avril Lavigne. No, I'm kidding. I don't wish her ill. I think, that would be such a full circle moment. That feels like it would be
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah.
You get Danny up there.
Get Danny
jumps
up
up
there.
for a surprise.
Maybe he can guest on one of my songs.
Yeah.
We
can have lots of fun.
Have lots of fun. But that is also it, right? Like when you're a kid, like you feel so self-conscious about everything. And again, like that fades for me by the day.
It's the
It's
it's the
excellent.
most exciting part about getting older. It's
It
just
is.
like suddenly you're like, wow, I'm not just saying I don't care. I legitimately don't care.
Yeah.
And like that's just it's freedom,
Yeah.
you know?
And I've for the most part, like my social media following has been like really supportive, and really a lot of people view it a similar way where it's like, this is really inspiring that you're doing this. And just recently I've started getting the negative comments, and I was like, how wonderful.
Yeah.
Because now it's like, if I'm getting to you, that speaks to, again, like it's still me doing my goal, which is making you think about what is going on in your life that you may want to
Yeah.
change
Yeah.
and do and find,
And it's also just like the types of people who leave negative comments on the internet are like the loneliest types
Yeah.
of people, and like it says so much about what's happening in their life more so than
100%.
it says what's
Yeah,
happening in
it
your life.
kind of has
It's like,
nothing to do
if
with you.
if your
Right.
if your life is as unsatisfying if your life is so unsatisfying that you have the time and mental bandwidth to comment negative stuff on a stranger's social media, unless they've done something truly vile.
yeah,
Right.
But if you're just on there to yuck someone's yum, then like you're a fucking loser.
Yeah.
Go get some better stuff to do with
go
your
get your
time.
own
100%.
yum.
Go get your
Go
own
find your own
Yeah.
yum,
Find
man.
your own
Because it's
yum.
in there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's in there.
there's got to be
Yes.
some yum that isn't
Mhm.
just calling a stranger an idiot.
yeah, So.
Your story earlier about like Donnie Wahlberg throwing sweaty towels into the crowd is so exciting to
Yeah.
me.
I know.
Because like we went and saw Backstreet Boys
Mm-hmm.
live with in the past few years,
Right.
Yeah.
And like it was one of the most fun
Pretty
shows I've
amazing.
ever been to.
yeah.
Well, and I think it does play into that same theme where it's like everyone's there is probably there because at a different age, this
Yeah.
was amazing.
Mhm.
And now we're all at an age where we don't care about looking dumb. So there's something about that energy that feels like,
Yeah.
you know, contagious.
It's like ravenous middle-aged women.
yes.
Which I
Yes.
was like, these are my people. I love this.
Fighting
Exactly.
over a towel.
Yep.
Did women fight over the towels?
You know what? People were using some decorum. I think there was a couple ones that got a little bit hairy, but for the most part, it was like, I think he was also really good at directing it. Like, this is for you. This is
Sure.
for you. You know, like
So it's like the idea of it's like their version of like a foul ball at a baseball
100%. Yeah.
game. Getting everybody, here comes the towel.
Well, next let that be a note for people going to NKOTB shows. Bring a baseball glove.
Bring a baseball
It
or
may
a
pay
giant
off for you.
or a giant net.
There. Yeah. Exactly.
Giant butterfly net. Now this has
Perfect.
been so much fun.
Yeah,
What
thank
a
you
great
so much for
time.
coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was wonderful.
And where can people find your things?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Lauren Elizabeth Ash or TikTok at Lauren Elizabeth Ash. I think those are the only real two at this
Okay.
point for me. Yeah.
You're not hard into X.
Yeah.
You know what? I've also outgrown X.
you
Oh,
go.
and also I should also plug my podcast, True Crime and Cocktails.
Of course,
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you want some more of this weird banter and true crime, it's for you.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you for coming on, Lauren. This
Thank
is
you
so
so
much
much.
fun.
Yeah. And we'll see you again real soon.
Absolutely.
When you leave Bean at our house.
I know.
Yeah.
She misses
Yes.
you guys. She does.
Yeah.
All
Oh,
right.
thanks everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.